Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about this and talked about that, and I negotiated better than I thought I would.
Okay.
And, ended up getting more money starting off than I thought from what the first offer was.
So life was good.
Yeah, it was good. And they were going to go test at Talladega. And Bob said he'd have to talk it over with the front and all that sort of stuff, make sure it was good. And he'd call me Thursday. Well, like I said, this predates cell phones and all that sort of stuff. Well, I'm as nervous as all get out.
Waiting on the phone call.
I'm waiting on the phone call.
Yeah.
And shucks, it must have been about 11 o'clock that night. Bob Riffle was a man of his word. They tested down there. They got, storms come through and stuff, so they couldn't fly out. And I'm done in bed. And, back in those days, you didn't call somebody's house after 9 o'clock unless somebody had passed away or gotten in an accident.
Yeah, and needed your help.
Yeah. And so the phone rang, and Daddy answered the phone, and he come to the bedroom and was like, some man's on the phone wanting to talk to you. And
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was Riffle.
Yeah.
And he said, we got weathered in down there and couldn't get back in time, and said, I told you I'd call you on Thursday. And he just, got under the wire, but he did call me back on Thursday and said had the job if I wanted it.
That's awesome.
So
that was good news.
Oh, that was great news.
Well, that's so. What was your first assignment, and how quick did you get on? You was on the pit crew too, wasn't it?
That was 93, and
so you was here a couple years before they conned you into that deal.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody wants to do it until they do it.
Oh yeah, and I mean, again, you had to want to do that,
right?
That type of work.
Yeah.
So, like, that was in 91, right?
Yeah.
So you actually started building some of the newer development stuff, which went in the ARCA car a couple times, right?
Yep.
And it actually ran really well, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
From right off the bat, the get-go.
Yeah, we had Richie was driving y'all stuff. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know if you want to say your daddy's or
that's Maurice Penn and Associates. And I was really not officially back then yet.
Right.
So between the let me check this out. We kind of long-winded. Still going? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll just roll on. And so y'all were doing that because Bob wanted to try some stuff out.
Right.
And we were, or Richie and us was guinea pigging because I would come in still working for other places and change tires for them.
Right.
In that period. So it all kind of runs together and it doesn't matter. So.
Well, even back in the Mike Jackson days, I had a little bit of tie with Richie.
Really?
I don't think, me and him talked about it since then, but he ran a car at Charlotte, like a Daytona Dash car. And I think they had a head issue or something. And Mike brought, I don't think we built the engine, but Mike brought the head back. And that night, turned it around, valve jobbed it, fixed whatever it was, and Mike took it back to the track. So
is that right?
That predates.
Well, what car was that?
It's a 4-cylinder car. I don't remember all the details of who Richie was driving for.
Well, we got to put a picture of that in too because I didn't even know that. That's cool. All right, so this could go on forever, and I appreciate it. It's great stories. Tell me a little something about what made you come up with the Fred gear, because that's kind of what you're famous for. Did you do that while you were here, and then as you moved off, or how did that all transpire?
This goes back almost to the Riffle period. Because when we'd go to Daytona, when he was still here, we'd take a break at the track, and we'd go over to Crane, used to have open house.
Okay.
And went there and saw them making camshafts and stuff like that.
I've done that tour, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, and saw the process of how they were building the cams, making them, and the heat treating and all that sort of stuff. And, it's like, well, dang, this is the reason why bronze gears get eat up all the time. In the motor, it starts that early in the process. So one thing led to another. Years later, when Dodge got back into racing, just due to the cam gear location being on the outboard on the end of the camshaft, that exaggerated the problem. And
it was always trying to push away.
Yeah, well, it's to run out in the gear.
Okay.
And if you get the prints from the manufacturers, they tell you to straighten the cam up after heat treatment to the gear, because the gear is hobbed on there the first of the process before it gets hardened.
Okay.
And just do how manufacturers are. They take a few shortcuts, and you've got a gear that's got run out.
So it's an inherent problem.
It's an
all the way
inherent
through.
problem.
Yeah.
Unless it's a cast cam.
Okay.
You know, it goes through a different heat treat process, so it
Parkerizing and stuff. Is that what?
Yeah, it's sort of like an induction hardening.
Okay.
And it doesn't distort like an 8620 camcorder would.
So what made you come up with basically taking and machining the old gear off?
Well, when Dodge got back, you know, the cam gear's on the end, and literally you put the distributor in, because we were doing a lot of the development work. The Dodge deal was sort of like the P-51 Mustang project. It went from nothing to running pretty quick.
Oh yeah, and it was a
bunch of people involved.
A lot of people. Yes, sir. I would agree.
But you could put a distributor in, and just loading the valve train up, you could hear the distributor gear squealing. Just no load or anything, just turning the motor up due to the run out.
Really?
Oh yeah. And it looked like you just
nothing was jiving.
Yeah, it just looked like you cut your toenail clippers, and had clippings and the little base back of the block there where the gear's eating up just on the engine stand.
Just rotating it by hand.
Rotating it over.
Cool.
And it would bind up so bad you couldn't pull the distributors out. It'd lock them up until it machined itself.
So you go back to your experience and people you knew and how'd that develop?
Well, I can cut this gear off and get another gear made, and I can put it in.
And you bolted it on, or is it pressed on?
Both.
Okay.
It had press and bolt on it, just trying to make it redundant where it wouldn't fail.
Because a lot of people kind of copy that process
later on
after you've done it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that it evolved to everybody does it now.
Yeah.
In whatever racing app that
and
you're
for
in.
the Dodge deal, I was fortunate enough, or lucky enough, I applied and got a patent for that.
Okay.
Back in the day, but basically, I can do the process and get the gear where it's got like a thousandths or less run out, and you could run one distributor gear all year long. And we would
just by doctoring that up and and tighten up the tolerances and stuff.
And by doing that, we could take the distributor gear, the bronze side, and make those teeth in thousandths increments, quarter tooth thickness thicker, to take the backlash out. And it looks like he's running a crank trigger, and it doesn't wear or anything.
Well, I noticed, but even back in the old late model days, you'd be running a motor, and that's why a lot of people would rev them way up.
Yeah.
Is because it would be actually retarding.
Yeah.
So you'd be watching it, and you'd think you'd have it, 39 or 40 degrees, and all of a sudden it was back to 37, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times back before this process, started or took on, I know we were even trying to run the belts tighter, thinking it was a belt deal.
The Jessel belt stuff.
Yeah. And to a degree, it is a little bit of that, but you can run them to the point where they will fail. Because that aluminum grows at twice the rate of steel, and the belt tension just gets tighter once it gets to
all those banjo string tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how that whole process come up. But this is a stub of what I'd take around and show the teams.
Gotcha.
And I've got a distributor gear here. When Elliott won Indy, my stuff was in the Dodge deal, won Indy.
Well, congratulations on that, for sure.
And there's a distributor gear out of the DEI car when Dale Jr. won Daytona with the baseball scheme.
I think the previous guest, J.D. Dennison, I call him J.D. Dennison, he was the tuner on that deal.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and worked in the engine shop for that 8 car.
That was sort of fortunate through all
Small
this.
world, ain't it?
I ended up doing some work back in the tail end of the IROC series when they...
Was that with the Dodge stuff or back to the Chevrolet? Or
I believe that was
Pontiac?
Still the Chevrolet stuff a little bit. And Walt Szymanski, he was the head motor guy up there, and got introduced to him. And so this was late 90s, early 2000s, right before they shut down whatever they were doing.
Right.
And it all runs together. But
some
of the best drivers in the world ran my stuff. and I got to finish dead last in every race because it was in all the cars.
You won in.
Yeah, I had both ends covered.
Oh, that is awesome. All right, so kind of going back here. I'm sorry, I'm all over the board. When's the first time you met my dad, the chief?
Oh my!
I mean, do you have a good story about that? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about it?
Actually, I moved in my toolbox and stuff up here on a Saturday, actually a couple of weeks before I started. And I don't know if they remember it or not, but used to have a pinball machine come up to the motor room.
I do remember that pinball machine, yes, sir.
And I'd ended up bringing my toolbox up early. Randy Cox was here washing parts that day whenever I came in. And your daddy come up through there, and pretty sure Richie and Mark were with him.
Okay.
And, sort of introduced himself, and he was sort of a hero of mine. And I was a little bit in awe kind of deal of him.
Okay.
And he's like, well, if you're going to start in May, why are you moving up so early? And I told him so not to give them time to change their mind. You know what I mean? And once I got to working here, I'd heard so many stories about how rough around the edges Chief could be and stuff like that and all. And, I'm going to say your family, was probably the first people to befriend me. Once I moved on.
I know you said that before, and like I said, I'd never remember nothing but good about you. I mean, I don't think we've ever. Me and you've never had an argument, as far as I know.
Not that I remember.
But go ahead, finish. I love this.
Yeah,
keep going.
But anyway, every now and then y'all would have a little cookout or something over.
Mama's always cooking something, yes, sir.
And I was there. I mean, one night at that thing, and your dad was telling me some stories and stuff about things, and I told him, you're not near as bad as what I've always heard.
I bet you can appreciate that.
Yeah, and he just sort of laughed and chuckled, and he said, "Son, I've mellowed out a whole lot."
Well, I mean, in his defense, he was just always intense and very serious about his job.
Yeah.
And some people just took it the wrong way.
Right.
No apologies necessary. So.
But, I mean, I was very fortunate, even once I left here, in 01, and I'd still come back on occasions and stuff. And even when I came back to work at Petty's Garage in 18, periodically if I was passing through or whatever, and we got where we'd stop down there and see your daddy at the house on his birthdays.
That's exactly right. Even after you'd done left here.
Yeah, and I think it's always pretty cool, even if it wasn't his birthday or something like that, I'd just come knock on the door and holler, and hear my voice.
Yeah.
And we could sit around the kitchen table or whatever and just talk.
Well, I know you had an effect on a lot of old guys that worked here, like Stafford and all that. But so when you left here, the Petty group,
yeah,
where did you go? Because I don't want to just cut you off in the middle of the stream.
Yeah,
this wasn't the last place you went to.
Yeah, I left here in early Martinsville's first race at Darrell Waldrop's in '95. And I went down.
I didn't realize you went that quick, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was here from 91 to 95.
Did Nick leave before you?
Yeah, Nick left.
He went to the route, or was it
Yates?
Yates deal.
Yeah, he went to
Robert Yates.
Okay.
I want to say Roush Yates.
Like
That's what it's called.
93, I believe, is when Nick left there. He was here for the fan appreciation tour and all.
Okay.
But went to Darrell Waldrop's then. Rick Mann had come up here as the head motor guy at that point, because Riffle had already left, and he had gone to Roush's over in Liberty and all, but by then.
Yeah, and he helped us with the Ford deal later, but go ahead.
Riffle got me a raise when he was working over at Roush's. That was good.
No, and it's the little things that mean a lot.
Yeah. And so Rick came up here to be the head motor guy, and Rick had been working down at Darrell's place.
I didn't realize that's where Rick had come from.
Yeah. And so he made an opening down there, and I went down there and took the spot down there at Rick.
So who was the head guy there?
Claude Quinn.
I was thinking Claude Quinn.
That's when I worked with him and Bob Grell and Bill Carter and
They were all there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were all
Because some
there.
of them, yeah, go ahead.
And anyway, started doing qualifiers down there, and I built the motor that Darrell won his last pole with.
Where was that at?
Atlanta.
Okay.
You know, last race of the year. He sat on the pole down there.
Oh,
and
man, that's...
So that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
You know, so I sort of, you know, you can never go home again kind of deal, and it got where, you know, I was homesick. That's the reason I went back. And then everybody back home done got married and had kids and stuff. And I had more friends up here than I did down there now. So I was sort of back homesick for the level cross area.
Really?
So I moved back up here January 1st of 96 to come back. I was glad they wanted me back, or they'd have me back. So I came back then.
You know, I now that you say that, I didn't recall that that's how it happened. That you went there and then come back. But
yeah,
continue, please.
And anyway, I stayed here until I got fired in May of 01.
From here.
From here.
Now, who was the guy that turned you loose?
Actually,
or do you want to get into that?
Oh well. Jerry Freeze was like the team manager kind of guy.
There was several of those guys. Yeah. But it was when did it end anyway for that engine group?
It was basically the end of that year. I just got a head start on everybody.
And it was a couple guys that did. But now that you mention it, I do recall
when
that.
Dodge came back into racing, they wanted the team to have all new equipment. And so I bought all the old equipment.
I do remember that.
From up here. And
the sun and stuff,
mainly.
But
yeah, all the sun and stuff I bought. And it was funny because Richard said he'd sell it to me. He just didn't want me to quit and go out on my own. And I wasn't dare going to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, wasn't long, I ended up getting canned.
And you had to.
And it looked like Fred Lankford's a brilliant man at this point, because I had a shop set up, and in 30 minutes time I was working.
I'm thinking you were brilliant.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, that was about the time I was doing all the distributor work, and they sent me home and paid me more money to work on their stuff at the house. And that opened the door to go out to some of these other teams and sort of sell
what you had going on.
What I had going on, and it was pretty
well, that
good.
helped the case pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, so I was. Sometimes there's always good that comes out of bad.
Well, Fred, it seems like we've been here for an hour, and I don't know what, but I appreciate you coming by. We'll probably have to sit down again. You got way too many stories that does this to us, you know.
Oh, yeah.
In and out, and the people you knew and I knew. But anyway, like and subscribe. Check out Petty Brothers. Thank you for watching.